This is September 30th, 1988. My name is Joe Todd, and this is an interview with Jennie Hauck in Bethany, Oklahoma. Ma'am, where were you born?
In Texas.
What part of Texas?
Well, it was near McKinney. It was on a farm, of course, but I don't know how many miles. It wasn't but a few miles from McKinney. That was our closest town.
And when's your birthday?
August the 30th.
What year? What year were you born?
88.
1888. Who was your father?
I.G. Watkins.
And your mother?
Lucinda Watkins.
What was her maiden name?
Watkins. There's both Watkins.
Oh, they were both Watkins. Okay. Anytime you have a question, or anything you want to say, just go ahead. Where were your parents born?
My father was in Alabama, but I'm not quite certain where my mother was. If I ever heard her say, I don't remember it, but I've heard her speak so much of Kentucky, I would rather think it was Kentucky.
Was your father or your grandfather in the Civil War?
No.
No. Okay. And why did your parents move to Texas? Do you know?
No, I don't know that. They just, well, he liked to move, my father did. He was always on the move nearly, and he just thought it was a better place. Richer country, thought he could do better there, I suppose. That's why.
And why did the family move to Tennessee?
Well, my grandfather was getting up in years and not able to farm anymore. He had a little farm there. And he wasn't able to farm, and he asked my daddy to come back, to move back and take care of him and grandmother, and he would deed him their farm if he'd come back and take care of until they're dead. And that's why he moved back there.
Did you know your grandparents?
Oh, yes.
What were their names?
Barrick was my grandfather's name, and my grandmother's name was Peggy.
And did they ever tell you any stories when they were small children from their childhood that you remember?
No, I don't remember any. That's been so long. Of course, I didn't see them after I was 13 years old, and so I wouldn't remember any stories.
Was your father a farmer?
Yeah, he was a farmer and a missionary Baptist preacher.
What part of Tennessee was the farm located?
It was 20 miles east of Chattanooga. It is close to the Georgia line, just a little bit. Tennessee and Georgia, joins. And we lived just close to the line, just 2 or 3 miles, maybe 2 miles.
Would you tell me some of the chores you did on the farm when you were a small girl?
I don't know. I did a few, but I wouldn't know hardly how to begin. But when I got big enough to work in it, it was in the field, hoeing, chopping cotton, and clearing up new ground. My sister and I had to clear up some new ground. My father leased some land when we went to Tennessee, and he took a lease on some ground, and it was all in timber, small brush. And we couldn't hire help. Seemed like there's nobody close. And my sister and I had to help clear up that land, a little patch, to make a little crop.
Now, what did you use to clear up the land?
Well, an axe and a mattock. My sister would cut the little brush, and I'd pile them and burn them. But this was the roots of the brush, it was, they just spread out on top of the ground like. It wasn't like trees that grow here. It was just small brush called shin oak, I believe that was the name of them. And there's a lot of root to them, but it's right close on the ground. Well, she'd cut off the brush and I'd burn them, and then Father would plow along. He'd just plow them up, and we just made a fence between two patches of ground that we cleared up out of them big old flat roots. They're just about that thick. Mm-hmm. It's funny looking. I've never seen any more like them anyplace. But I think they called them shin oak. Now, I'm not certain, but it's some kind of a oak.
How large of an area did you clear, these two patches?
Well, I wouldn't know exactly. Maybe 10 or 15 or 20 acres, I guess.
And how long did that take?
Well, it took about 2 months. Mm-hmm. We commenced in, I guess, latter part of February. And then we had it cleared up ready to make a crop that year, mm-hmm. which we always planted corn in March and April, and planted cotton in May.
Now, you mentioned you chopped cotton.
Yeah, I chopped cotton. Yeah.
How long were the cotton rows?
Oh, I don't know. It was, well, I don't hardly remember. They wasn't so very long. Maybe 50 or 75 foot.
How long did it take to chop one row?
Oh, it didn't take long. Mm-hmm. About 20 minutes, I imagine.
Mm-hmm. How large of a hoe did you use to chop cotton?
Oh, 6-inch.
And do you know what type of cotton your father planted?
No, it was just cotton was all I knew.
Then how many pounds could you pick in one day?
Well, I couldn't pick much. I couldn't pick much over 100. I never was very strong. But the others, my sister and some of the, well, my daddy didn't pick much either, and we didn't have no boys to work at that time. We had a baby brother, but he wasn't ever big enough to work while we was at home. We had to do the work. And you just couldn't hire anyone. You didn't have the money for one reason, and there wasn't nobody around much that wanted work. They was all busy on their own farms.
Was your sister older than you?
Yes, she's 3 years older than I.
What was her name?
Liddy Wynn. She married a Wynn.
Mm-hmm. How about laundry?
Well, it is done on a wash tub out under a shade tree.
Would you tell me exactly how you did the laundry? You know, you had to draw the water from the well and heat the water.
Yeah, we drew the water from the well, and we had a big old iron kettle, and we heated that water in the kettle. Built up a fire out there and heated it in the kettle, and we washed on a rub board. And then we'd put them clothes in that kettle and boil them to get them good and clean and white. Couldn't just rub them out like they do in the washers nowadays and them be clean. You had to rub them with your hands on the rub board.
What kind of soap did you use?
Lye soap. We'd make the soap most of the time. Sometimes we'd buy it, but we made a lot of soap out of lye.
How do you make soap?
Well, you take lye and fat from the hogs when you butcher, like the cracklings and all, and you mix the lye and water up together and put the cracklings in, knead them up, and put in so much water for a can of lye, and then boil it till it gets thick enough for soap.
Mm-hmm. Did you make your own lye or use store-bought lye?
No, well, we bought the lye then when we was there on the farm.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever made lye?
Yeah, when we lived in Tennessee, they made the lye. They fixed a big, they called it a hopper. They put the boards up and let them come down that way, say like that way, and it come out at top, so wide, about that wide, and we'd save our ashes, pour them in there, and we'd get the hopper full. Then they got ready to make the soap. Why, we'd pour the water in on the ashes, and we had a little trough made for the water to drain out through the ashes, and a bucket there to catch the water, the lye water it was.
What in that wood ashes makes lye? How does that work?
I don't know. It's just in the ashes, in the wood when it's burnt. Why, there's something in it that makes the lye.
Did your parents tell you how the family traveled from Texas to Tennessee?
They came on the train.
On the train. Okay. Any other chores that you did besides, working in the field, laundry?
No, nothing, only housework.
Yeah. Anything that you
Making your bread, you baked. You have told me about baking bread.
Not when I was at home, only, well, I'd cook. I said housework. That was housework, too. I cooked from the time I was 12 years old till I was married. I commenced making biscuits at 12 years old.
What's your recipe for biscuits?
Buttermilk and soda and salt and baking powders. I'll use just a little bit of soda and a little bit of baking powders and some sharpening. I could make good biscuits.
Yeah. You still make them?
Yeah, I sure did.
Where'd you start to school?
Well, back there in Tennessee when I was 6 or 7, I don't remember just what year it was. I guess I was 6.
Remember the name of the school?
It was at Howardville.
Howardville?
Uh-huh.
Was it a one-room school?
Yeah, one-room school.
How many students in the one room?
I wouldn't hardly remember, I don't think. There might have been 50, I don't know.
What was your teacher's name?
John K. Roberts was my first teacher.
Would you tell me how Mr. Roberts handled all those grades in one room?
Well, I don't know, but he just handled them. He was a good teacher. And he was crippled, too. But he was a good teacher. But they didn't have schools very long. Just 3-month school was all we had.
Why 3 months?
Well, in the summer and fall, while we had to work, see, we raised cotton and peas, and when fall come, we had to help gather that. You done everything by hand them days. Didn't have no machinery, and you had to work to make a living.
What type of house did you live in those years?
Just, well, when I lived in Tennessee, we had a 4-roomed house.
What, frame house?
It was board.
Would you tell me how you celebrated Christmas in your childhood?
Yes. We had a big Christmas tree always at the schoolhouse where we went to school. And they'd put the gifts on the tree for the people. And of course, Mother'd bake up a lot of goodies for Christmas. We had a pretty good time for poor folks.
And what type of gifts would you receive?
Oh, just a little sack of candy maybe, and some apples and an orange.
What was the largest holiday you celebrated during the year?
Oh, the largest was when we went to Cleveland. That is about, I don't know if it's 20 miles or not. I don't believe it was, maybe 15. My father and I went to Cleveland to the 4th of July celebration. And well, I enjoyed that. I'd never been off to anything like that, and I was just 11 years old.
Tell me about it.
What?
Tell me about the celebration, July 4th.
Well, they had the funniest part about it was a grease pole they had, and the boys was trying to climb it. You know, if they could climb to the top, they'd get a $5 bill. And it was fun to me to see them little boys are working so hard. They'd get up so high, and then they'd just slide down. They couldn't go no farther. And I just got tickled at that. I was just laughing, and there's one woman pretty close to me, and she had a little crippled boy, and I was laughing about them boys climbing the pole. She thought I was laughing at that little crippled boy, and she just bawled me out good and proper, and I wasn't at all. I just thought it's funny to see them boys trying to climb that pole.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they had other things around, but I don't remember about that, what all went on. Only just like they have at a picnic, just drinks and everything. Big barrel, big tank of lemonade. They didn't have too much.
Mm-hmm.
But it was fun to me because I was young and I'd never been off to see nothing like that to remember it.
You say Cleveland, is that?
Cleveland, Tennessee.
Cleveland, Tennessee. Okay. Now you lived in Tennessee until you were 13?
Yes.
And then you moved where?
To Durant, Oklahoma.
Why did the family move to Indian Territory?
Well, Pappy left Tennessee looking for a better place to live, and he first went to Texas and looked around. He didn't find nothing there, and somebody told him something about Oklahoma, about Durant, that it's good ground there and good farming country, and he went there and he found a nice little farm to rent, was good ground, and just had a 2-roomed house. And but he rented it, and then we stayed in Tennessee till he got that place rented, and then he wrote for us to come. He went on ahead of us on the train, him and my brother-in-law, and they looked around, and he found that place, rented it, and then we went there and had a good ground. He made a good crop, and I don't know, but it wasn't healthy there. It was a lot of chills and fever, and he got dissatisfied, and he sold the crop in the field to the owner of the land, and we loaded up in a wagon and started for Arkansas. And we went a ways, and the road got so rough, it was just rock, just like a stair step going up a mountain. And he decided he couldn't make it, so we turned around and we was going to go back to Tennessee. Got to the depot, and the agent, when he went to buy the tickets, he said, "Why are you going back to Tennessee?" Said, "There's good ground here, or back in Oklahoma." Said, "There's a good ground there," and said, "Tennessee's a poor country," which it wasn't poor. And he talked him into the notion of buying our tickets to Earlsboro. After we was all packed and just ready to get on the train in a few minutes to go to Tennessee, and he changed his mind. We went to Earlsboro.
Why Earlsboro?
Well, I don't know. That guy, that ticket agent, just told him around Earlsboro was a good place, and he took him at his word, and so we went to Earlsboro.
Now, did you travel by train from Tennessee to Durant?
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me about the wagon trip.
Oh, it was awful. It was rough, but we didn't go but a few days in the wagon until the road got so rough, and he just backed out and sold his wagon and team and went to the railroad station.
Do you remember what you packed in the wagon to take to Arkansas?
Oh, just our bedding and clothes, and maybe some, just a few cooking utensils, what we had on the trip while we was in the wagon and traveling. We couldn't take much in one wagon, so it was just a few utensils and our bedding and wearing clothes was all we had.
In those years, were the roads well defined in those years?
Oh, they was rough. There's just little old narrow roads, and boy, they was rough.
How did you know where you were going?
He started for the Boston Mountains in Arkansas. He knew. I reckon he'd been around some, maybe before he was married. I don't know. But he'd traveled around, and he knew where they were and all, but the road was just too rough.
What did you think about the Indians in Oklahoma when you were moving here?
Oh, I was a little bit afraid of them at first, but after we got acquainted with them, they were real nice. There was one nice old man. He had a married daughter living with him. I think his wife had just died recently, and he had a big farm and an orchard, and he wanted to put up a lot of fruit, and he would give anybody, if they'd come and can fruit, well, then he'd give them half they'd can. So my mother went over there one day and canned fruit. She liked the people real well.
What was their name?
Atkins.
Atkins?
Yeah.
Were they Choctaw?
I guess they were. I don't quite remember that, but I think they were, because it's in the Choctaw Nation.
How big was Durant when you moved there?
Well, I don't know what the population was, but it wasn't very big.
Do you remember what the town looked like?
No, I don't.
What about Earlsboro? What did it look like?
Well, it was little too. Yeah.
Oh, the buildings, wood, stone, brick?
No, it wasn't no. I don't think there was any brick at all. If there were, I don't remember it. It was all wood.
Were the
when
streets?
we went there.
Were the streets paved?
No.
When it rained, what were the streets like?
Oh, it was like a mud hole.
How'd you cross the streets to go downtown when it rained?
Well, where we lived, there wasn't no creek, but it was just muddy. We walked on the outside, like where there's walks here was just a trail along. We'd just go that. We could go, but it was muddy, of course.
You have trouble going up and down the street when it rained in the town?
Yeah.
Did you have trouble with mud sticking in the wagon wheels?
They did in Texas. They said that the mud would get, it is old black land, and they said that mud would ball up on the wheels till they'd have to get out and knock it off with something before they could get to town. But in Oklahoma, it wasn't that way, of course. There's enough sand that it don't get bad. Here in the mud, only when it's in red clay, it would get kind of sticky, but not too bad that you can't go. You can keep it going.
Did you help your father work on the wagons?
No.
No. Could you tell me how you kept the tires tight on the wagon? You know, the steel rim?
Well, they stayed tight most of the time, but in dry weather, if he didn't use the wagon, why, they would get loose a little, and he'd just take a bucket of water and pour it on there, and just keep pouring it on for a little while, and it'd swell the spokes till the tire would get tight enough it wouldn't come off.
Where did you live near Earlsboro?
Well, it was about, was out at the north edge, like of Earlsboro, but it's only about 2 blocks from the depot.
How often would the train come in?
About twice a day, I think. There was a morning train went down through Seminole at 10. No, it come through Seminole and Earlsboro about 10. And then there's one went back sometime in the evening. I don't remember what time.
Did you farm by Earlsboro?
Farm, well, our place where he leased it, where we lived when we cleared the ground, it was just about 5 or 6 miles east of Earlsboro.
What crops did you raise there?
Well, it was corn and cotton.
Corn and cotton.
Yeah.
Did you have a well at the house?
Yeah, he dug a well.
How deep was it?
Oh, it was about 20 foot, I guess.
Had good water?
Yeah, it was good cold water. Of course, it was hard water. It wasn't very healthy water. None of the water them days seemed like they'd cleared up so much ground, they said, around there. But so much rotten timber, they said that's what caused the water to, that it wasn't healthy. We had a lot of chills and fever. And they said that was the cause of it. I don't know.
Let's see. What store did you go shopping at in Earlsboro?
Well, Al Gillum was one store, and I believe it was Walter White where we traded the most. It was a general store, dry goods and groceries. And he was a nice little feller, and we traded there most of the time.
Would you describe the inside of that store? What did he sell?
No, I couldn't describe it now. I don't know how big it was. It wasn't so very big. Since the stores are so big nowadays, it'd sound awful little.
And how long did you live in Earlsboro?
Well, we moved there in 1902, and we lived there till I was out there on the farm. I lived there till I was 16, and I married at 16.
Married, what year did you get married?
What day?
What year?
Oh, 1904.
Yeah, what month and day?
11th of September.
And what was your husband's name?
Charles.
Charles Hauck?
Yeah.
And was he a farmer also?
Yes. He was a farmer till he was 42, and then he went to, about 40, he commenced doing carpenter work, and he carpentered on till 82, and then he retired.
And you moved to Washington?
Yeah.
Why'd you move to Washington?
Well, my sister and her man, a lot of the people around there had relatives in Washington, and they was making good, and they said it was healthy. And of course, my man wasn't healthy. He wasn't a bit well. He had an awful cough, and a lot of people thought he had TB, but he didn't have TB, but he just coughed nearly all the time. I don't know why, but he just wasn't strong. So we moved out there mostly for his health. And he did get healthy while he lived out there and gained some weight, but he never was very strong. Oh, he could do a lot of work, but he still was He was thin. He wouldn't put on much weight.
What'd you move to in Washington?
At PL.
PL?
Yeah, we first moved to a logging camp. That's where my sister and her man lived. And in that logging camp, it was a big camp. Quite a few houses there and a grocery store and all. And they paid pretty good wages them days. And so we lived there a while. And then we bought a place in PL, which was just 4 miles from Wallville. And we bought a nice little house in PL, and we lived there about 2 years, about a year.
Did you work in the logging camp?
He did, yeah.
What did he do?
He drove team.
Mm-hmm.
They needed lots of teamwork, and he drove team most of the time, because he was a farmer and knew about horses and could manage them better than anybody out there, the boss said. After he saw him, tried him out a day or two, and so he kept him on that for quite a while.
Would you describe the houses in those logging camps?
Well, there's just about 2-roomed houses. They was just made out of wood.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And how big were the trees they were cutting?
Oh, they was huge. There was one big enough, 16 foot through. They had a square dance on it. Sawed it off, you know. They cut the tree down and left a big stump. And some of them went out there, they said, and had a big dance on it.
Mm-hmm. And how long did you stay in Washington?
2 years.
2 years. How did you move to Washington?
We went on the train.
On the train?
Yeah, 6 days and nights on the train with 2 babies. Both of my children were small. The baby was 6 months old, and the other one was just a little over a year old.
Why did you return to Oklahoma?
Always just young and got homesick to see our folks. And of course, where my husband was working at that time, why, the mill burnt down. The sawmill burnt down, and that would have thrown him out of work quite a ways. And he didn't have no way to go and let walk. He had to walk to work. Nobody had cars, no team or nothing, and you had to walk to work. So he couldn't walk to work, and we was homesick to see our folks. So we just sold our house and moved back to. We first went to Seminole to his folks and visited with them a few days, and then we got on the train and went to Caddo County, where my folks lived. And we farmed there 2 years. And then we moved to Blanchard and bought a farm. That's where we had some more hard work. Bought 90 acres and had to clear it up. And we had some hard work in our lives.
Moved to Blanchard in 1912 and lived there 8 years. How big was Blanchard in those years?
Oh, it's just a small little town with just very few stores, maybe 2 or 3. I think there was maybe 2 doctors lived there in Blanchard, or 3. There was 3 doctors lived in Blanchard. I don't know why, because it was such a small place, but. Well, there was church and a good school there. The girls went to school there. Both of my little girls did.
Did you do any work for the war effort in World War I?
No.
No.
No, I was busy on the acreage when we moved on at Putnam City before we moved here. we lived out at Putnam City on acreage, 7.5 acres. And boy, I had plenty of work there. I couldn't work out much. I did one winter work at a laundry, cooked at a laundry a few months, and that was the only work I ever did out.
Speaking of World War I, do you remember the Spanish-American War?
No.
1898, 99.
No, I don't remember that.
Okay. What about Armistice Day? The day the war ended?
Yeah, I remember that. I was standing out by the side of the house washing on a washboard, and I heard them blowing the horns and everything.
This was in Blanchard?
Yeah.
Was it a big celebration in Blanchard?
Yeah, they was, and at the city, oh, they put on a big one, but of course we wasn't at either one. We was at home. We'd all had the flu and was just up. I was just barely able to stand out there and wash, and I wasn't able, but I was washing anyhow.
I was going to ask about the flu epidemic. Tell me about having the flu.
Oh, nearly everybody had it, and we all had it at once. I had three children then. Well, I had a baby too. Yeah, it was 4. 3 was big enough to go to school, but then we had the baby, and we all had the flu. And
Did many people around Blanchard die of the flu?
yes, they sure did. Some of my best neighbors died. There's just a lot of them went.
Remember any medicines they used for the flu?
No, I don't. I don't know what all they did use.
And you lived there until 1920, and then where did you move in 1920?
We moved up here to the city.
Did you move to Missouri first?
No, yeah, we moved to Missouri before we moved here, yeah.
Why'd you go to Missouri?
Mountain View, Missouri. Well, he had folks living there, and I don't know. We just thought that might be a better place. We had some droughts down there at Blanchard, and didn't make good crops, and so we thought we'd move to Missouri and be better off, but we didn't stay but 9 months.
Then you moved to Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
What did Oklahoma City look like in those years?
Oh, it didn't look like it does now. Oh, it was kind of small. Oh, it was a pretty good town, of course. But
Tell me about the oil boom in Oklahoma City.
oh,
I think it was in 1923 when they struck the Oklahoma City oil field.
well, I didn't know much about it. He was doing carpenter work, and I just didn't know much about it. I knew there's a lot of work going on. It's about all I know.
Okay. So you moved to Bethany in 1929.
Putnam City.
Putnam City, I'm sorry, Putnam City.
Yeah,
How did the Depression affect you and your family?
pretty hard. But we got by. We didn't starve. We didn't go hungry at all.
Were you farming in those years?
Well, we raised a lot of garden stuff and feed for the cows. We always had a cow or two, about 2 cows, and we'd raise feed for them and raise a lot of garden, and he'd do carpenter work when he could get it, but couldn't get the carpenter work all the time them days. So we got by.
Well, the dust storm was very bad in Oklahoma City in those years.
Well, one year it was something awful. You just couldn't see no ways. It was so bad. I forget just where it was. It wasn't very far. But they had a funeral, but they couldn't go on to the cemetery. It got so bad after the funeral they had to just go home. They couldn't go on and bury the corpse. It was really bad, but we've never seen another one like it.
How did you keep the dust out of the house?
I didn't keep it out. It was actually that thick on everything the next morning. And I was having company that day, having a dinner for a bunch of my friends. And we had to do some work that morning and get part of that dirt out.
How did you eat your meals without eating dust?
Well, I tried to clean the dust off the table and dishes and all the cooking utensils and all, but it was on the beds and floor and furniture all around.
You lived in Putnam City for Who was Putnam City named for?
Mr. Putnam that had
Putnam.
that big building, Mom, that big old gray stone building that sat there by the interurban tracks.
Yeah,
Mr. Putnam.
yeah.
And that's who the...
Did you know him?
No, I didn't know it.
Would you tell me some stories about the interurban?
Well, I just know it. It run quite often. That's the way I got to the city when we first moved out here. He just had one old car and he was using it all the time when he had work. And so when I wanted to go to the city after anything, I rode that interurban.
What did it cost?
15 cents.
6 cents, I believe.
15 cents.
Huh?
15 cents.
It went up afterward. Yeah, when we lived in over there on C Street, it was 6 cents, and then after we moved to Putnam, why it went up 15 cents. We thought that was pretty high.
Okay. Why did you move to Bethany?
Well, I got tired of work on the acreage. It's just work. I had cows and chickens, and it just kept me busy selling stuff. People come at all hours through the day or at night, right at supper time, and maybe I wanted to go someplace. Why, somebody'd come in and wanting something, and I just got tired of it. So we had bought this house. My younger son had been in the army, and he got out when the war was over, and we couldn't find a place for him to live, so couldn't find a rent house. So this house was for sale, and we bought it and let him live in it a year or two. And then I took a notion that we'd sell that acreage and get out of so much hard work. So we sold the acreage and part of it, and built him a house on part of the acreage up there on 2.5 acres.
Do you have any? Would you tell me some stories that your mother told you, like children's stories, or just any story that she told you?
Oh, I can't remember anything now that she told me. It's been so long. I don't think. Couldn't call none to mind right now. I don't think worth telling. Sometimes when I'm off by myself or at night when I can't sleep, I can think of a lot of things, but if I want to think of something, it seems like I don't. My memory's not good as it used to be by a whole lot.
What's your most favorite childhood memory?
Oh, I don't know. I guess it was when I was along about 6 and 7 years old. Seemed like I had more fun with my little sister, and the family was all at home then when I was that age.
How many brothers and sisters did you have?
I had 5 sisters and 1 brother.
And you're the second from the oldest? Next to the oldest?
Blanche was the oldest.
No, your family was.
Oh, my family.
Mhm.
Oh, Annie was the oldest, and then Sally, and then Liddy, and then myself, and then Lonnie, and she got burnt up. And then Grace, and then my brother.
How'd she get burned up? What happened?
That was when we lived in Tennessee, just before we had left there. She had on a loose like dress, and was going to make a fire. The fire had burned down in the fireplace, and Mother wasn't at home. She'd just gone over to my sister's for something. She left us there, and it wasn't cold. We didn't need to build up the fire. It had burned down just to coals, but we thought we ought to put some wood on the fire, and so I went out to the wood pile to get some wood, and she stayed in there and scraped the ground in the fire, leveled it up kind of so we could lay our wood on it. And that dress, she stooped over and that dress caught fire, and she called me and said, "Come there." And I thought she was just fooling with me, and I didn't go, and she hollered again. And I knowed something was wrong, and I met her at the door, and the flames was above her head then. Just burned her all over. Just burnt the clothes off of her. Just a few rags hanging around her neck and arms where those seams was a little thick or something, didn't quite get them. Just from her knees up, of course it didn't catch on her hose. Her hose and shoes were all right, but from her knees up she was just burnt solid. But she lived 11 days.
I'd like to ask a question, if I may. Do you remember her funeral, your sister?
Oh, yeah.
Would you mind telling me about that?
It's a cold, snowy day. Wasn't many people there. I don't think. I don't remember about that, how many, but they had a funeral, and she was the first one buried in that cemetery. Them days, they had cemeteries right by the churches, and that was at the Mount Vernon Church, and she was the first one to be buried there.
Where were you living then?
Huh?
Where were you living at that time?
We was living out on the farm
Was that here in Oklahoma?
out,
It was in Tennessee. wasn't it?
I was in Tennessee.
Did Grandpa preach your funeral?
Oh, no. Oh, Jesse Huffaker preached the funeral.
How old was your sister?
She was 8 years old.
And how old were you?
I was 10, 11. I was about 11.
Yeah, what do you think of any questions? Anything we haven't covered that you'd like to talk about?
No, I don't think so.
Anything about your parents?
No.
Would you describe your parents for me?
Well, my father he had red hair, or sandy-like red beard, and he was part Irish. And my mother was just part Indian. I don't know how much. But she looked like she might be more Indian than they say she was. I don't know how much Indian she was. She was kind of a large woman, pretty good size.
What kind of personality did your parents have?
Well, she was a good personality. My father was good, but he did have an awful high temper. But he was a good preacher.
A good singer. He had a beautiful voice.
Huh?
He had a beautiful voice. He could sing.
Yeah, he could sing, my goodness. Had an awful strong voice.
Did your father attend the seminary?
No. He got his education by an old fireplace, burning pine knots. They'd burn up, they'd take them a long time to burn, a pine knot would, but they'd make a good light. The flame would go up, they'd make a pretty good light. And he sat by that fireplace and got his education of reading the Bible. He read the Bible through 52 times straight. And then at just peace times, no telling how much, every day of the world he'd read his Bible.
Now, would you tell me some of the mischief you got into?
Oh, I don't know. I don't believe I got into it.
Oh, I think you did.
Oh. I don't think of anything worth telling.
Oh, it must be something. Did your mother make all of your clothes?
Yes. Yeah.
Did she have a sewing machine?
Yeah, she got a sewing machine when I was a little bitty kid. I can remember when they got the sewing machine. I don't know how old I was. I can just remember it. And oh, how proud they was, all of the girls older than I was. They're so proud of it, and they're going to learn how to sew, which my oldest sister, she could sew real well. In them days they had patterns. They would teach children how to use a pattern and sew. I don't know if she took lessons or she just learned it at home, what Mother told her. Of course, she had never had a machine till I must have been 5 or 6 years old. I can just remember it good, and that's all I can remember about it. But she had sewed them clothes on her fingers until then. If she didn't go to some neighbor's house and sew something special, why, few of the neighbors them days had machines, but it is very few that had machines. But they could sew on their fingers and make the clothes all right.
And you have 5 children?
Yes.
One deceased.
What are their names?
Blanche, Ethel, Aston, he's deceased, and Emmett, and Goldie.
Goldie the youngest?
Uh-huh.
Well, I think we have a good interview. Any more stories or anything you can think of about farming or?
No, I don't believe so. I couldn't think right now. Maybe tonight when I go to bed I'll think of something that I should have thought of, but I just, my memory's just not good. Takes me a long time sometimes to think of things. Go to tell something, call somebody's name, and I'll forget it before I can say it. I guess I see a lot of people that way, though. I'm not by myself. I see people all the time that's just as forgetful as I am.
Well, Mrs. Hauck, I want to thank you for the interview.
Well, you're welcome.
Okay. Well, that wasn't too bad, was it?
No. I was kind of slow about thinking about things, but I think I've thought of the most important things. Of course, there'd be a lot more, but
I'd like to ask, how does it feel to be 100?
no difference to no other time.
Okay.